What does it mean to truly understand the rules and laws that shape our lives? How do we ensure that every member of our community is valued and included? And most importantly, how do we guard against the temptation to twist those rules for personal gain or power? The readings we'll review tonight call us to reflect on how communities are built and how they can be broken. Welcome to Mythologizing the Bible, where we'll be taking a look at 3 readings from the Christian Bible through the lens of sacred myth. As we reflect on the readings for the third Sunday in Ordinary Time, we're going to look beyond the traditional Christian narrative to uncover a few lessons that should resonate with all of us, regardless of our religious background or lack thereof. In this episode, we're diving into some fascinating readings that challenge us to think about our roles in the communities that we belong to, whether we've chosen those communities or not. Along the way, we'll explore the risks of manipulation and exclusion, and we'll discover how humility, engagement, and integrity can transform not just our communities, but the world at large. My friends, this isn't just a conversation about ancient stories. It's a challenge to think about what kind of world we're building today. Are we using our knowledge and talents to create fairness and unity? Or are we letting division and self-interest guide the way? These are big questions, but the answers start with us. So grab a comfy seat, a glass of your favorite beverage, and let's look at some ancient stories together in this edition of Mythologizing the Bible, where we'll be exploring the readings for the third Sunday in Ordinary Time, Cycle C of the Roman Catholic Lectionary. In this series, we're exploring readings from the Bible through the lens of sacred myth, looking for interpretations and lessons that don't demand a belief in the supernatural. What that means from a practical standpoint is that we will assume that these stories and writings are fiction, written by pre-scientific people who were simply trying to make sense of the universe. Now, you might agree with the lessons I find, but I encourage you to look for something that rings true to you. Part of the beauty of understanding these writings as sacred myths is that we're free to interpret them for ourselves. We're free to learn the lessons that we need right now. So with that, let's dive in. As I said, tonight we'll be looking at the readings for the third Sunday in Ordinary Time, Cycle C. Our first reading is from Nehemiah. It's chapter 8, verses 2 through 4a, verses 5 and 6, and verses 8 through 10. Our second reading is from Paul's first letter to the Corinthians. It's chapter 12, verses 12 through 30. And our gospel reading is from Luke. It's chapter 1, verses 1 through 4, and then chapter 4, verses 14 through 21. Now, we will start by going through all 3 of the readings. Then we'll look for the messages and the main lesson in each one. And finally, we'll bring everything together, look at what it means for us today, and then talk about where we go from here. So with that, let's begin. Our first reading is from Nehemiah. So on the first day of the 7th month, Ezra the priest brought the law before the assembly, which was made up of men and women and all who were able to understand. He read it aloud from daybreak till noon, as he faced the square before the water gate, in the presence of men, women, and others who could understand. And all the people listened attentively to the book of the law. Ezra, the teacher of the law, stood on a high wooden platform built for the occasion. Ezra opened the book. All the people could see him because he was standing above them. And as he opened it, the people all stood up. Ezra praised the Lord, the great God, and all the people lifted their hands and responded, Amen, Amen. Then they bowed down and worshipped the Lord with their faces to the ground. Ezra read from the book of the law of God, making it clear and giving the meaning so that the people understood what was being read. Then Nehemiah the governor, Ezra, the priest and teacher of the law, and the Levites who were instructing the people, said to them all, "This day is holy to the Lord your God. Do not mourn or weep." For all the people had been weeping as they listened to the words of the law. Nehemiah said, "Go and enjoy choice foods and sweet drinks, and send some to those who have nothing prepared. This day is holy to our Lord. Do not grieve, for the joy of the Lord is your strength." Our second reading was from the first letter to the Corinthians. Brothers and sisters, just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all its many parts form one body, so it is with Christ. For we were all baptized by one Spirit, so as to form one body, whether Jews or Gentiles, slave or free, and we were all given the one Spirit to drink. Even so, the body is not made up of one part, but of many. Now if the foot should say, "Because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body," it would not for that reason stop being part of the body. And if the ear should say, "Because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body," it would not for that reason stop being part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But in fact, God has placed the parts in the body, every one of them, just as He wanted them to be. If they were all one part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, but one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, "I don't need you," and the head cannot say to the feet, "I don't need you." On the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable, and the parts that we think are less honorable we treat with special honor. And the parts that are unpresentable are treated with special modesty, while our presentable parts need no special treatment. But God has put the body together, giving greater honor to the parts that lacked it, so that there should be no division in the body, but that its parts should have equal concern for each other. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. Now you are the body of Christ, and each one of you is a part of it. And God has placed in the church, first of all, apostles, second, prophets, third, teachers, then miracles, then gifts of healing, of helping, of guidance, and of different kinds of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Do all work miracles? Do all have gifts of healing? Do all speak in tongues? Do all interpret? Our gospel reading is from Luke. Many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed down to us by those who from the first were eyewitnesses and servants of the word. With this in mind, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I too decided to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, so that you may know the certainty of the things you have been taught. Jesus returned to Galilee in the power of the Spirit, and news about him spread through the whole countryside. He was teaching in their synagogues, and everyone praised him. He went to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and on the Sabbath day he went into the synagogue, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. Unrolling it, he found the place where it is written, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Then he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. The eyes of everyone in the synagogue were fastened on him. He began by saying to them, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." All right, so let's go back and take a bit of a critical look at these readings and see what learnings and lessons we can find if we dig around just a little bit. So our first reading was from Nehemiah, and in this reading we witness an extraordinary moment that the Israelites gather to hear the law read aloud and explained to them. For them, this wasn't just a religious exercise. It was a reconnection with their identity and their values after a period of exile. And the reverence shown with people standing and responding, it's very similar to how Catholics approach the gospel reading during Mass. But while this reverence is admirable, I guess, it raises an important question. What good is a law or any guiding principle if the people it governs don't fully understand it? So Ezra knew this. Ezra understood this, which is why he took the time to ensure that everyone, men and women and all who could understand, could comprehend what was being read. This clarity is essential, especially for laws that are meant to protect and empower a community. However, the dynamics of this scene also set a precedent that has some, let's say, troubling consequences throughout history. Ezra, if you remember, Ezra stood on a platform, physically elevated above the people, likely so that everyone could hear him. Well, this was practical at the time. It symbolically placed religious teachers and clergy above everyone else. It gave them the appearance of having more authority than everyone else, a hierarchy that still persists today. For centuries, religious leaders have controlled access to sacred texts and determined their interpretation. Even now, in a world where almost everyone has the ability to read the Bible for themselves, most people don't. Most people defer to others to tell them what it says and what it means. This reliance on intermediaries can be dangerous because it allows folks with specific agendas to manipulate interpretations, and that's often done to serve their own interests rather than for the good of the community. Ezra's example also highlights a key principle for any society. Laws and rules must be understandable to the people they govern. A good law isn't about control. It's about creating conditions where individuals and communities can thrive. When laws are written in ways that are confusing or overly complex or intentionally vague, they can end up being tools of oppression rather than instruments of justice. Similarly, when religious or political leaders discourage critical thinking and exploration, they strip people of their autonomy and of their power. The lesson here is clear. Whether it's a sacred book or the laws of the land, people need to understand the rules that affect their lives. That's the only way we can hold our leaders accountable. It's the only way we can ensure that those rules promote fairness and well-being for everyone. So the main lesson I got from our first reading is that people must understand the rules and laws that affect them. The reading from Nehemiah reminds us of the critical importance of understanding the rules and laws that shape our lives. When we give up that understanding to others, we risk losing our ability to advocate for fairness and justice. Whether it's about faith, governance, or daily life, knowledge is empowerment, and clarity is the foundation of any thriving community. If we want to build a better, more just world, we have to start by making sure we understand the rules and laws that affect us, and then hold those in power accountable to those laws. The bottom line is that people must understand the rules and laws that affect them. Our second reading was from the letter to the Corinthians, the first letter to the Corinthians. And in this reading, Paul addresses a community that was struggling with division. And he does it by using the metaphor of the human body. It's probably one that most of us have heard before. Right? Just as a body needs all its parts to function well, each with a unique and valuable role, I guess, except maybe the appendix, a community relies on its diversity to thrive. This imagery it's rather timeless. Whether we're talking about families, workplaces, or society at large, the message is clear. Everyone has something to contribute, and the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Paul's words remind us that unity doesn't mean uniformity. It means recognizing and appreciating the value of each individual's unique role within the collective. Paul also emphasizes that no one can simply opt out of the community. Just as a foot can't say, I'm not part of the body because I'm not a hand. We can't declare ourselves separate from the interconnected web of relationships that make up our lives. It's just like a community can't function well if it tries to exclude or discard its members. Unfortunately, many conservative Christian churches have obviously forgotten this message. Instead of embracing those who are different, they judge, they cast out, or they drive away people who don't conform to their narrow definitions of belonging. But Paul's metaphor makes it clear. No part of the body, no person can be discarded without harming the whole. This lesson is especially important in today's polarized world. Our divisions, whether political, social, or cultural, they often lead us to devalue or dismiss those who see things differently. But if we're truly going to address the challenges we face, we need to embrace the idea that everyone has a role to play. Even those who we disagree with contribute to the larger picture, whether by challenging us to think differently or think better, or providing perspectives that we lack, or highlighting areas where we can grow. Even those who disagree with us can add to the sum of the whole. Paul's call for unity isn't just about the church. It's a call for all of us to recognize our shared humanity and work together, despite our differences, to create a stronger, more inclusive community. So the main lesson I got from our second reading is that we are all part of the community, whether we like it or not. Paul's metaphor of the body teaches us an essential truth. We are all connected and we all have a role to play. Communities thrive not by discarding those who are different, but by valuing everyone's unique contributions. In a world that feels increasingly divided, this message is more important than ever. We don't get to opt out of the community, and we don't get to tell others that they don't belong. If we want to create a better future, we need to embrace our interconnectedness and work together to strengthen the whole, because we are all part of the community, whether we like it or not. Okay, our final reading was from the Gospel of Luke. And the first part of this reading was actually an introduction to the Gospel itself, written to someone named Theophilus, which means friend of God. So it was likely that it was just a generic name meaning friend of God. Now, while it attempts to lay out an orderly account of Jesus' life and teachings, which is what it says, it's trying to lay out an orderly account, it's important to recognize that this isn't a biography. It's a narrative that is meant to support early church teachings. In the next part of the reading, we jump to chapter 4, and we see Jesus reading from the scroll from Isaiah, from the prophet Isaiah, in the synagogue, and then claiming to be the fulfillment of the scripture that he just read to them. So this bold declaration, well, it raises some eyebrows with the folks who were there. But we don't know that because the reading ended too soon. If we had read just a little bit further, a few lines more, we would discover that what Jesus said didn't go over very well with his hometown audience. In fact, when they start to question and become angry, Jesus tells them, well, I can't work any miracles for you because a prophet is never accepted in his hometown. So they get angry. They reject Jesus outright, and they even try to throw him off a cliff. So this dramatic escalation, it's designed to protect the mythology around Jesus. It's designed to explain away why those who knew him the best, all these people that he grew up with from this tiny little town of Nazareth, why those people who knew him the best didn't testify to any of his supposed greatness or the miracles that he supposedly worked, right? They didn't document anything. This is to explain that away. Oh, well, he didn't work any miracles there because the prophet's not accepted in his hometown. Okay, how convenient. But maybe what's most striking about this story is the way it uses ancient prophecies to justify Jesus' claim to divinity. The author of Luke's gospel used these writings from Isaiah and pulled those outside of Isaiah and said, this is proof that Jesus is the Messiah or was the Messiah because he said so. But here's a problem. Relying on these texts as proof, it's a classic example of twisting rules and traditions to serve a specific agenda. The author of Luke's gospel crafts this narrative where Jesus not only fulfills prophecy, but also conveniently avoids accountability for the lack of evidence from his contemporaries in Nazareth, the people who knew him the best. It's a reminder of how easy it is to manipulate beliefs or laws to benefit yourself, whether it's to consolidate power, to avoid criticism, or just to bolster an image. And this isn't just a religious issue. It's something we see in politics, in business, and even in personal relationships. So how do we draw a humanistic lesson from all this? That's what I struggled with this week. Well, I think we can do it by focusing on the dangers of arrogance and manipulation. Claiming greatness, especially without evidence, the way we watched Jesus do in this reading, it erodes trust and it divides communities. This is an example of what not to do. Real greatness doesn't need to be proclaimed by the individual. It's recognized by others through actions that uplift and inspire. Whether it's a leader, a colleague, or a friend, those who genuinely contribute to the well-being of others rarely need to declare their own importance. Instead, their deeds speak for themselves. This story challenges us to reject arrogance and dishonesty in favor of humility and authenticity, especially when it comes to interpreting or applying rules, laws, or traditions. So the main lesson I got from our gospel reading is that it's wrong to twist rules and laws for your own benefit. Twisting narratives or rules for personal benefit creates more harm than good. Manipulation and arrogance divide communities, while humility and authenticity build trust and inspire progress. True greatness isn't self-proclaimed. It's earned through actions that speak louder than words. Whether in our personal lives or in broader society, we need to resist the temptation to twist rules for personal gain and instead focus on living with honesty and integrity. Because it's wrong to twist rules and laws for your own unfair benefit. All right, let's review the lessons we've talked about so far. In our first reading from Nehemiah, the main lesson I came away with was people must understand the rules and laws that affect them. In our second reading from the first letter to the Corinthians, the main lesson I got was we are all part of the community, whether we like it or not. And finally, the main lesson I got from our gospel reading was it's wrong to twist rules and laws for your own unfair benefit. It's important for us to see the big picture. We're all part of a community, and that connection comes with both privilege and responsibility. It's not enough to understand the rules and laws that govern our lives. We also have to engage with them in good faith. When we choose to participate in ways that build trust and contribute value, we strengthen the community for everyone. If we choose the opposite and try to manipulate the system for personal gain or try to game the rules, well, it erodes trust and divides us. True engagement means recognizing our shared humanity and finding ways to use our unique strengths to benefit the whole, not just to benefit ourselves. So let's commit to being valuable members of our communities. Let's work together with honesty, integrity, and respect for one another. When we do, we're not just making our own lives better, we're creating a ripple effect that makes the entire world a stronger, more fair place. So let's step back and take another look at these readings overall and see if we can figure out what these messages really mean to us in our daily lives. To do this, I'll try to answer two questions. So what and now what? Okay, so what? Why should we care about any of this? Well, we should care about this because Christian nationalists and dominionists are working to rewrite the rules to fit their worldview, and they're not being subtle about it. Their so-called Seven Mountain Mandate openly calls for Christian domination over every major aspect of society: family, religion, education, media, arts and entertainment, business, and government. They're not trying to coexist or collaborate. They're trying to take over. And they're using every tool at their disposal to do it, from lawsuits that twist legal precedents to electing officials who continue to work to force their conservative Christian laws on everyone else. This is important because their ultimate goal is to turn the United States into a Christian theocracy. This isn't about faith or personal belief. It's about control. They want everyone to live under laws dictated by their specific interpretation of Christianity, their specific interpretation of supernatural beliefs and mythology. And they'll push anyone who doesn't conform out of the conversation or out of the country. That's not freedom. That's not democracy. That's oppression, plain and simple. If we care about protecting freedom and diversity, we need to pay attention and push back against this dangerous agenda. We should care about this because the United States was not founded as a Christian nation. The Constitution doesn't just separate church and state, it actively ensures that no one religion can dominate the government. The 1797 Treaty of Tripoli even states outright that the United States was not founded on Christianity. This wasn't an oversight. It was intentional. Our founders understood that true freedom requires protecting people of all faiths and none. Forgetting or ignoring or trying to change this history leads us down a very dangerous path. Look, just because a law doesn't align with someone's personal supernatural beliefs doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. Laws exist to balance freedom with fairness. They're meant to protect diversity and create unity without forcing total conformity. When people manipulate the system to force their supernatural beliefs onto others, they undermine the very freedoms they claim to be defending. If we want to preserve a society where everyone has a place, we have to stand up for laws that protect freedom, fairness, and diversity. We should care about this because the only way to counteract this agenda is by being engaged. That means understanding the laws, knowing why they exist, and then defending them when they're under attack. It also means recognizing our role in building communities that value inclusivity over control. When we stand up for fairness and we reject attempts to game the system, we're not just protecting ourselves, we're protecting the future of our country and the world we're leaving for the next generation. This is important because it isn't just about fighting back. It's about standing up for the values that make our communities thrive. Fairness, freedom, and respect for diversity, those values are worth protecting. And the good news is we're not powerless. By educating ourselves, by holding our leaders accountable and working together, we can ensure that our communities are places where everyone can belong. So let's get to work. The stakes are high, but so is our potential to make a difference. This is our moment to engage, to protect, and to build a better future for everyone. And the last question I try to answer is, now what? What are we supposed to do? Where do we go from here? Well, if there's one thing we've learned tonight, it's that understanding the rules and laws that govern our lives isn't just important, it's essential for protecting the freedoms and values that we hold dear. Knowledge is power, and the first step to defending our communities from those who would manipulate the system is to understand the system itself. You don't have to be an expert overnight, but you can take simple, meaningful steps this week and the coming weeks to become more informed and engaged. So with that in mind, here's your challenge for the week. Take 30 minutes this week to research one law or legal precedent that has shaped our nation's commitment to freedom and diversity. It's 30 minutes. It could be something like the First Amendment, the separation of church and state, or the 1797 Treaty of Tripoli, which explicitly states that the U.S. was not founded on Christianity. Use credible sources, some government websites, educational institutions, or respected organizations. Write down a few key takeaways about why this law or the precedent matters today. This is important because understanding the foundation of our freedoms helps us defend them. When you learn about these laws, you're not just gaining knowledge, you're equipping yourself to push back against misinformation and manipulation. You'll start to see the big picture of how these principles protect us all, and you'll feel more confident in conversations about fairness, freedom, and justice. I used to accept the claims that the United States was founded on Christian beliefs. And although I understood the reason for the separation of church and state, and so there wouldn't be any state-sponsored religion, I didn't understand the problem with things like displaying the Ten Commandments in public schools. What was there to be upset about? Just the Ten Commandments. Everyone knows the Ten Commandments, right? No big deal. But then I did a bit more research, and I continued to read about it today. The U.S. wasn't a Christian nation. Yes, the Declaration of Independence has some overtly Christian language in it, but when it came time to draft the Constitution, right, the binding document that created the core framework for our republic, well, they were very careful to ensure that God wasn't in the details. Many of the early non-indigenous people in the U.S. came here in order to escape the tyranny of theocratic rulers, and our republic is an alternative to the so-called God-given right of kings. And the Ten Commandments, well, we really look at them, the first four have nothing to do with morality and living an ethical life. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make any idols to worship. You shall not take the Lord's name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Christians are offended when pagans or Satanists want to share the things they believe, but everyone else should be fine when Christians want to put their religious beliefs on display, where the first 4 commandments are specific to their supernatural beliefs. That's a complete double standard, and it makes no sense. And honestly, the rest of the 10 commandments are nothing special. Honor your father and mother. Okay, most cultures have taught that from the beginning of recorded history, probably from the beginning of time. You shall not kill. You shall not steal. Nothing new there. You shall not bear false witness. What, if it weren't for the 10 commandments, no one would tell the truth? I'm sorry, but many of the self-proclaimed Christians I see on TV are the biggest liars around. Oh, and what about you shall not commit adultery? Do we really want to hang that in our kindergarten classrooms? Who's going to explain that to those little kids? Explain to them what adultery is. The same people who want to hang posters of the 10 Commandments in public school classrooms are banning books that say those same things. Besides, all you have to do is check out the news to realize that Christian leaders, they aren't following the commandments anyways. Not that one. And finally, one of my favorites, you shall not covet your neighbor's goods or ass or whatever other version you want to pick. This one is almost laughable. Our consumer economy is based on the fact that no one follows this commandment. It's all about keeping up with the Joneses. All of the billionaires bankrolling these Christian nationalists are counting on everyone coveting everything. It's how they got rich and how they're going to stay rich. Everybody wants more because everybody else seems to have more than I do. Anyway, as you can probably guess, I'm absolutely opposed to displaying the 10 Commandments in public spaces, especially in public schools. And I came to that conclusion by doing some research and reading about the various sides of the issue, and then thinking about it logically and reasonably. So taking this small step, researching on your own, it can lead to big changes, not just in how you view the world, but in how you engage with it. When we all commit to learning and sharing what we know, we create a ripple effect of awareness and action. That's how we protect our communities and build a future where fairness and freedom can thrive. So this week, set aside just 30 minutes. Find a law or a precedent, learn about it, and take a step toward becoming the kind of engaged, informed person who helps make the world better for everyone. Well, before I wrap things up, I'd like to leave you with one more thought. Thomas Jefferson, one of our founding fathers and the 3rd U.S. president, once said, "It does me no injury for my neighbor to say there are 20 gods or no God. It neither picks my pocket nor breaks my leg." It's a rather pithy quote that sums up his opinion that one's religious beliefs, or lack of them, should make no difference whatsoever. But Jefferson also wrote this in his letter to the Danbury Baptist Association in 1802. "Believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, that he owes account to none others for his faith or his worship, that the legitimate powers of government reach actions only and not opinions, I contemplate with sovereign reverence that act of the whole American people which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state." Those words, Thomas Jefferson's words, they're very powerful. The first quote I shared was very pithy and to the point. But these words are serious, and they're more powerful, and they're timeless. And they anger many Christians because they don't fit with their revisionist version of American history. Jefferson reminds us that the separation of church and state is not just a legal construct. It's a cornerstone of American democracy. By declaring that religion is a personal matter, Jefferson underscores that government has no business enforcing or privileging any particular set of religious beliefs. This wall of separation protects both religious freedom and the rights of those who choose not to adhere to any religion at all. This is exactly why efforts by Christian nationalists to display the Ten Commandments in public schools or other government spaces is so troubling. The first 4 commandments, as I said, are explicitly religious and don't apply to everyone. They reflect a specific faith tradition, not universal principles. The rest, well, they're vague but generally widely accepted moral guidelines, but they are not uniquely Christian, and they certainly don't justify imposing a religious agenda on diverse communities. Jefferson's words remind us that the government's role is to protect actions and rights, not to enforce religious doctrines or opinions. This connects directly to our call to action this week, your challenge for the week. When you take the time to research laws or precedents like the First Amendment or Jefferson's interpretation of the separation of church and state, you're equipping yourself with the knowledge to defend this critical principle. Knowing the history and rationale behind these laws makes it so much easier to counter the misinformation that Christian nationalists rely on to push their agenda. And in spite of what so many Christians claim, defending the separation of church and state isn't anti-Christian. It's not persecuting them. It's hard to persecute the majority anyways. And it's definitely not some sort of war on religion. Understanding and defending the separation of church and state is about preserving fairness for today while protecting freedom for future generations. Jefferson's vision is still relevant, and it's up to us to ensure that this wall of separation stays strong. By learning and speaking out, we honor the values that have made freedom of belief and diversity possible in the first place. Let's keep that legacy alive. All right, we've come to the end of this episode. Thanks for joining me. I'll be back again next week, but in the meantime, I encourage you to take the challenge that I presented this week, but also pay attention to the important lessons you come across wherever you find them. You'll create a more purposeful and joyful life, and you'll start to feel more connected to the world and the people around you. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Mythologizing the Bible, where we did a deeper dive into the readings for the third Sunday in Ordinary Time, Cycle C of the Roman Catholic Lectionary. Remember that by educating ourselves, holding leaders accountable, and working together, we can ensure that our communities are places where everyone can belong. The Bible readings used for this episode are from the Holy Bible New International Version, NIV, copyright 1973, 1978, 1984, and 2011 by Biblica Inc., used by permission, all rights reserved worldwide. Thank you for listening. If you like this content, please consider telling a friend about it. The more people who hear the positive messages I'm sharing, the better. Mythologizing the Bible is a live-streamed series held most Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/thecodaproject. Every week, the audio of these Mythologizing the Bible presentations is released as a podcast. You can find both the podcast and the video versions of the presentations at thecodaproject.com. CODA stands for Creating Our Divine Alignment. When we learn to align our words and actions with our core values, that alignment feels absolutely exquisite. It feels divine. But it's a divine alignment that doesn't require belief in the supernatural. It's a divine alignment we have the ability to create for ourselves. To learn more, to subscribe to my mailing list, and to keep up on everything I'm doing with the Coda Project, please visit thecodaproject.com.